a gentle man who lived his life with a loving and generous heart, and I will miss him so much. And I just realized I skipped the readings. Okay, how's that for an intro? Sorry, I'm a bit. I have 2 readings for us. My cousin Jim has graciously offered to do a reading, and then my niece Chelsea. Jim?
Am I?
For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to break down, a time to build up. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones, and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek, and a time to lose. A time to keep, and a time to cast away. A time to rend, and a time to sow. A time to keep silence, and a time to speak. A time to love, and a time to hate. A time for war, and a time for peace.
Lord, we turn to you in our grief and bewilderment, for a mystery surrounds the birth and death of a man. Your will summons us into this world and then calls us to depart. But your plan is so vast and your purpose is so deep that our understanding fails and our reason cannot follow. Yet you have taught us that time and space are not the measure of all things. Beyond them is the life of eternity. We do not die in the grave, into the grave, but into the love of God. It has been your will to receive his soul, to bring him to the everlasting, to life everlasting, and he is beyond the tragedies of this world. We shall find our comfort in your teaching. Beyond the grave, we shall meet together in the life that has no end.
Our second commentary was to be by my Aunt Lupe Sutton, who has chickened out. I don't misspell them, yeah. So I'll read from her. She says, "My brother Herman, I loved him dearly. We saw him weekly, and we saw his decline. I remember when he was a baby, and he and John would work with me on the farm. Actually, we were babysitting Herman, because he was only 1 or 2 years old. John and I, we worked fixing broken crates for my dad. We were very close growing up, as we were the babies of the family. We will miss him." And Ruby, would you stand up, please? Just stand up and that's my Uncle John.
Only 3 of them left in the family of 8.
You want to say anything with that?
No, ma'am. Tonto. I said Tonto would be
Our next words are to be from Eve Simon, who was not able to join us, so her son Jim will be speaking on her behalf.
Reading my mother's words are harder than reading Ecclesiastes. That's where she kind of ranks. From my mom, my little brother Herman. My earliest memory of Herman is that I've heard it so much that it's a fact in my mind. I see Herman walking at 8 months old, just as in my mind I see myself being born Another fact stored in my mind because I've heard the story so many times. My real first memory of Precious Herman is on our farm in Bandini Boulevard. I'm outside of our farm, the house, and I look at the road leading towards the railroad tracks, and I see these two little boys walking hand in hand on the road. It's my brother John, about 4 years old, holding on to our little brother Herman's hand, who was 2 years of age. Herman's and John continued to walk hand in hand throughout their lives, always close until our little brother is no more. Herman always held a special place in our family. Perhaps that came because of the special place Herman had in our mother's heart. Some of you may not know how hard our mother fought for this child. Mama and Papa's best friends of German descent, thus they called him Herman. They had those friends had no children, and they constantly pressured Mama during her entire pregnancy to allow them to adopt Herman, since our parents already had 7 children. Interesting times. Mama would not consent, and thus they lost these close friends. Perhaps this explains Mama's deep and close feelings for Herman. This emotional attachment caused her much pain throughout her life. Herman will always be loved by the entire Gallardo family. I'm so thankful that I was able to be with Herman during the last year of his life. I'm sorry that the last trip I had planned was 2 days before, then it was too late. To my regret, Herman died 2 days before I arrived in Lake Havasu. So she wants to share Ecclesiastes again. She writes, if I can get this home to work. I don't have it memorized. There it is. I probably used to. All right, Ecclesiastes 3:12 and 13. I have concluded that there is nothing better for us than to rejoice and do good during our life. Also that everyone should eat and drink and find enjoyment for all their hard work. It is the gift of God.
Amen.
Amen.
Our next speaker is my niece, Gallardo, who is my brother's youngest child, and she was not able to be here today. She's in D.C., but her sister Chelsea will be presenting what Alexa wrote for us.
2 grams from your alley. You are everything that I am not yet. You are everything a perfect man should be, with the traits and qualities that I'm striving to attain. Patience, hardworking, meticulous, proud of your work. Sure, you could be the strong, quiet type, but damn, I loved when those moments of quick-witted humor would come out. The first example that comes to my mind. Years and years ago, while I was visiting you in Graham and Havasu, either police or firefighters, it was some kind of law enforcement, came to the door doing a survey or fundraising of some sort. Without hesitation, I heard you yell from the other room as you opened the door, "Oh shit, Allie, I hope you brought your green card, right?" Of course, Grandma started laughing uncontrollably, and I just rolled my eyes and smiled and shook my head. The incredible attributes of yours, the ones that I mentioned before, are the ones that I'm working towards, and I won't give up. Grandpa, I look forward to the day when I get to hug you, see you, and see your smile again, and tell you about all the wonderful, fulfilling, and healthy life that I've had since you passed on. I can't wait to give you a proper thank you for being the damn near perfect grandparent you were to me. And don't worry, I'll make the exchange short and sweet so that your head doesn't get too big. Until that time comes, when you're looking down and watching over me, I hope you smile every time I use the skills that you taught me. I hope you go easy on me if I absolutely have to resort to taking my car to a dealership. And I hope you listen out for my prayers to you. I also hope you continue to enjoy the experience of my life with me, as you know that there's never a dull moment with me. See you later, Grandpa. I love you, Allie.
Okay, I want to open it up at this point. Anybody else wants to come up and tell a story or share a memory?
I'll go first, even though I said I wouldn't.
Thank you.
Is it okay? Can you hear if I do without the microphone?
Not
If
really.
you, no, okay.
Yeah, it really is better with the microphone. Chelsea, please, thank you.
I haven't thought this through, so I really can't. The one time that I remember my grandpa getting mad at me, and he was pissed, was I took my car, so my dad had a company car, and then when I moved in with him, I think I was 16 or 17, he just gave me that car. So I had it, and we lived at the top of Anaheim Hills, and so it's a very steep hill to go down. I'm saying this because if my dad was here, I think that he would actually have my back and defend me, because my grandpa was so mad. So you had to ride your brakes the entire way down because it was such a steep hill. So I took my car, anytime I had a problem, I would take it to my grandpa. But so once I had this car and I needed to take it in, and he of course wanted to check everything that wasn't why I was there to make sure that it was fine. And he didn't call me Chelsea, he called me Dolly, but he called me Chelsea when he was mad. And I remember sitting in the waiting room of his shop and him coming in, just anger surging through his body. And he was like, "Get out here, Chelsea, like, get out here." And he was like, I just remember him, like, "Do you know the term defensive driver? You're the opposite." And he was so angry with me, and I didn't know what he was talking about, and it was because my brake pads from riding my brakes down the hill were so worn down. And he was so angry, he was shaking. And it was just because he loved me so much, and he was being protective. Again, my dad would actually say that it wasn't my fault. Like, everyone had to ride the brakes, that was tough. But he was a bust, and he loved all of us. And that was also the last time I took my car to him, because I didn't want to deal with it.
So, like a lot of this, the times I saw Uncle Herman the most were with my car. And especially the series of Fiats I had from Uncle Jim in my teenage and college years, early on when many a young woman doesn't pay attention to those lights that go on. When you're supposed to change your oil or something's really, like there's a big red flashing thing and you're like, "I have finals, I'll do it next week." So on those occasions, he always took great care of me, and thankfully he didn't get mad at me. He probably was, he didn't though. The other thing I remember about Uncle Herman is that the Gallardo family is very big and very loud. And Herman tended not to add to the vociferous table. He would be sitting back quietly, watching everybody carefully, smiling with those Gallardo dimples, and then occasionally adding that one-liner singer. That's what I remember about my Uncle Herman. I'm going to miss him very much in the family. And I also wanted to say, I know Chelsea and Susana, from my own experience, that it's very hard to put on and get organized and put on a memorial when you're grieving and get everything pulled together when you don't feel at your strongest. And I appreciate you doing this for us.
Thanks, Denise.
This typically isn't my kind of thing, but Uncle Herman was my uncle, obviously. I spent many, many wonderful camping trips with him, as Susan probably remembers. Ralph and I used to always tackle him in a mud puddle at Bass Lake, and we'd fight and fight and fight until we were completely covered in mud. It was just, I mean, people from the campground would come around and watch. There was so much noise. And in the background, you hear Aunt Dorothy laughing and cackling, and it would go on for sometimes a half hour, 45 minutes. One of us would give up, and the other two would pull you back in. So we had a wonderful time at Bass Lake. He was such, if I had to describe Uncle Herman, I'd say he was just a humble, sweet man. He never, ever said an angry word to me. And I did work at the shop a couple summers. But, you know, I spent a lot of time with him. He was a sweet, humble man. He was always in charge. He was such an intelligent man. The MacGyver, absolutely. The one one word, another word to describe him. He was MacGyver. He could fix anything. Sort of like Uncle John ran in the family. Sort of like Uncle Rudy. They could fix anything. It was just the way they were taught. They were intelligent human beings that did what they had to do to succeed. One time we were headed to Bass Lake. It was probably the first trip in that lovely blue old boat. You know, and I think I had just turned 16. And Uncle Herman was tired because he had worked that day. So they laid down in the back of that old, what was it, a Bel Air, that blue Bel Air station wagon. And everybody was asleep in the back, and I'm going down. I forget who was in the front seat, but it wasn't Uncle Herman. And it was a single axle trailer. And for any of you that have pulled a single axle trailer, boat trailer, you know what happens when you start going downhill and you get a little too much speed. It starts wobbling, and it started wobbling. My eyes are open this big. I just got my driver's license. You know, so and pretty soon Uncle Herman wakes up and his head pops up. He says, "Don't hit the brake. Just slow down. Don't hit the brake. Take your foot off the accelerator." And I was ready to poop my pants. And Dorothy pops up. What happened? What happened? Or you know what? The very next year he put on a double axle. He did it himself. Added another axle to that trailer. Never happened again. But even that time, he never raised his voice. I pulled over. I mean, I didn't want to drive after that. Pull in a trailer, never again. But he didn't say a word. Just said it happens. Got a little too much speed. You handled it right. Never mentioned it again. You know, in college, remember one time I was driving a Bazo Valiant, you know, it was at Loyola, and it died on the way home. And I forget where I was. It was in LA someplace. Headed home, and I called him, and same thing. He said, "Don't worry about it. Just leave it there. I'll get it tonight." And him and Aunt Dorothy drove up and put on a trailer and drove it home, and you know, they took care of it. I don't know how I got home. I don't even remember. It was so long ago. But that was Uncle Herman. He showed up. He took the car. You know, he said, "It's ready. Come and get it." You know, so he was a wonderful man. He reminded me so much of Papa. I sat there sitting, listening to everybody describe him. And I think he reminds me most of Papa, because he was just so humble, such an intelligent, successful man, but so humble. Like the Uncle Johns, like the Uncle Rudy's. I mean, these people were wonderful people, and I'm going to miss him a lot. I didn't see him so much in the latter years. It really wasn't by choice. I just didn't feel comfortable being in that household, but not because of him. And I will miss him gladly, immensely. He was my Nino. He baptized me, or what was the other one? Confirmed me. I was going to say circumcised. He was there at my confirmation, and yeah, he was my Nino. I have such wonderful memories, as do we all. He was a good man. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
My name's Ward Ferguson. In 1963, Jim Sutton hired me to be Herman's helper at their car lot. And I worked with him there for a period of time, and then I got laid off because times got tough. Slowed down a little bit. But then in 64, I came back and I was the second employee Herman hired me to open his own shop. I worked for him there for a period of time until I was going to be drafted into the service. So we waved goodbye and I went off to the service. And when I came out, I had been disabled and I couldn't work there. And I got a job in LA working and worked there for a period of years. But I went to Herman's every Saturday. He would allow me to hang around the shop, work on my car, help him a little bit, do things, probably cleaned up a mess or two. One of the things I'll never forget is he always called me Tonto, which means dummy in Spanish. And he treated me so well over all the years. I might have got him started in water skiing because I had water ski boats all those years. I might have done that. I did sell him the frame for his dune buggy, which he built over the years later on.
again, he just gives me wonderful, all those years, wonderful serving, a great friend. Thank you from Tonto.
Hi, I met Herman a long time ago when I first got out of high school, actually. And counting on my fingers, there's probably more than 50 years, probably more than that. But I think I bought a car from Fine Car Company, is that what it's called? It used to be in front of Herman's shop. I believe it was called Fine, maybe I'm wrong. I worked for Ford, by the way. It was Fine Automotive or something. And I bought the car, and so immediately it failed, so immediately went to Herman. And I think he just got tired of me seeing there every morning because my car was always breaking down. So he hired me on it, and I worked with Herman for, I don't know, a year and a half before I got drafted. And I remember Herman never had an unkind word. Even when I was screwing up, it was always, take a step back, let's see what the problem is, and we fixed it. And that kind of information stood with me for the rest of my life. I always remembered that if you can't solve it right away, just take a step back and look at the situation and do whatever you want to. I also used to pick up Susan and Denise from from elementary school. One of my projects, I always used to get Dorothy going. You know, we don't want them waiting, get going, get in the car, go pick them up, and bring them back to the shop. They were always part of my family. Like I said, I knew them for probably close to 60 years, I guess. Real close to that. Anyway, Herman will be missed by me. He was an important person in my life. And I'm not very good at speaking, obviously.
Thank you.